The morning sun cast long shadows across the Tibetan plateau when the first tremor shook the ancient monastery. Master, Chen Wei felt it before the stone walls began to crack. A disturbance in the natural flow of energy that made his weathered hands pause mid-stroke as he practiced his calligraphy. In the meditation hall below, young monks scattered like startled birds as dust rained from the ceiling, but Chen Wei remained perfectly still, his senses reaching out beyond the monastery walls, beyond the snow-capped peaks, searching for the source of this unnatural disruption. What he found made his blood run cold. Across the galaxy, on 12 different worlds, something was stirring. Ancient creatures that had slumbered for millennia were beginning to wake. These were not ordinary beasts. They were the primordials, beings of pure instinct and rage that had once terrorized the cosmos before being sealed away by a civilization lost to time. The seals were breaking. Chen Wei had spent 70 years studying the old texts, learning the forgotten arts that his predecessors had dismissed as mere philosophy. While other humans reached for the stars with ships and weapons, he had looked inward, mastering the flow of qi, the harmony between mind and body that could accomplish what no technology ever could. He was the last of his kind, a true Kung, Fu master in an age when such knowledge was considered obsolete. The communication device on his simple wooden desk crackled to life. Emergency broadcasts flooded the airwaves from across human space. On Kepler 442b, a mining colony had gone silent after reporting impossible creatures emerging from deep caverns. On Proxima Centauri C, an entire research station had been reduced to twisted metal by something the survivors could only describe as living nightmares. Chen Wei closed his eyes and centered himself. The galaxy's advanced civilizations, the crystalline Zephyrians with their plasma weapons, the cybernetic nexus with their reality-altering technology, the ancient ethereals with their mastery over time itself, all were scrambling to respond. Their fleets were mobilizing, their greatest weapons being prepared. It would not be enough. The master rose from his meditation cushion and walked to the monastery's highest tower. From here he could see for miles across the barren landscape, but his vision extended far beyond what physical eyes could perceive. Through the cosmic web of energy that connected all living things, he witnessed the chaos beginning to unfold. On the desert world of Eridus VII, a creature the size of a mountain had burst from underground. Its hide was like volcanic glass, impervious to the Zephyrian crystal cannons that bombarded it uselessly. 6 legs carried its massive bulk across the landscape, while tentacles of pure energy lashed out, disintegrating everything they touched. The mining domes that housed 50,000 colonists were being crushed like paper. The beast moved with purpose, not random destruction. It was heading for the planetary communications hub, as if it understood exactly what it needed to destroy to cut the world off from outside help. On the ocean world of Aquatica Prime, something even worse had awakened. Beneath the waves, a serpent of impossible length was rising. Its body seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes solid flesh, sometimes crackling energy, sometimes something that hurt to perceive directly. The Nexus fleet that tried to intercept it simply ceased to exist as the creature passed through their formation. Not destroyed, erased as if they had never been. But it was the third awakening that troubled Chen Wei most. On the garden world of Elysium, where the Ethereal Council maintained their temporal research facilities, a creature had emerged that seemed to exist in multiple timelines simultaneously. The Ethereals, masters of time manipulation, found their greatest abilities turned against them. The beast was aging their defensive barriers centuries in seconds while remaining untouched by their temporal weapons. The pattern was clear. These were not random awakenings. The primordials were targeting the galaxy's most advanced civilizations first, methodically eliminating any force capable of stopping them before moving on to easier prey. And Earth, with its single, barely spacefaring civilization, was undoubtedly on that list. Chen Wei felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders like a familiar cloak. The old prophecies spoke of a time when the ancient enemies would return, when the sleep of ages would end and chaos would be unleashed upon the stars. They also spoke of a guardian who would stand against the darkness, not with weapons of war, but with the pure harmony of perfect balance. The other civilizations would fight with their ships and their science. They would throw everything they had at these creatures and watch it fail. because they had forgotten the most fundamental truth of existence, that true power came not from imposing one's will upon the universe, but from finding perfect harmony within it. A second tremor shook the monastery, stronger than the first. Somewhere else another seal had broken. Another nightmare had been set free. Chen Wei descended from the tower and began to pack. His belongings were few: a simple traveling bag, a change of robes, a wooden staff that had been carved by masters long dead. No weapons, no technology, no protection save for the knowledge he carried within himself. The young monks gathered around him, their faces filled with fear and confusion. The eldest among them, Brother Lin, stepped forward. "Master, the emergency broadcast, they speak of creatures attacking human colonies. Shouldn't we seek shelter? Contact the authorities?" Chen Wei smiled, an expression of such serene confidence that it seemed to push back the shadows gathering around them. "The authorities have plasma cannons and quantum missiles. Young Lin, they have shields that can turn aside starship fire and weapons that can crack planets. Against what is coming, all of this is as useful as throwing pebbles at a hurricane." He shouldered his simple pack and walked toward the monastery gates. "But Master," another monk called out, "where will you go? What can one man do against such forces?" Chen Wei paused at the threshold, looking back at the only home he had known for 7 decades. His voice carried clearly across the courtyard, filled with the quiet certainty of absolute conviction. "Everything, my young friend. When the time comes, one man in harmony with the universe can do everything." The master stepped out into the morning light and began his journey to save the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly convened on the neutral station of Haven's Rest, a massive structure that orbited the binary stars at the galaxy's center. Representatives from 47 different civilizations gathered in the Great Chamber, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolutionary diversity that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. High Admiral Theorix of the Zephyrian Collective stood before the assembly, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. Her voice resonated with harmonic frequencies that translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "The situation grows worse by the hour. 3 more worlds have gone silent since this session was called. Kepler par 52b, Proxima Centauri C, and now Vega Prime. Each time our most advanced weapons prove utterly ineffective against these creatures." A collective murmur of distress rippled through the assembly. The ambassador of the Nexus Confederation, more machine than organic being, stepped forward. Data streams flickered across his optical sensors as he accessed real-time battle reports. "Our analysis confirms the Admiral's assessment. Traditional energy weapons pass through these entities without effect. Kinetic bombardment only seems to enrage them. Even our reality manipulation technology has failed to contain them." From the temporal viewing galleries, the ethereal representative spoke. Her form shifted constantly between past and future iterations of herself, making it difficult to focus on any single image. "We attempted to trap the creature on Elysium within a temporal loop. Instead, it somehow learned to manipulate time itself, aging our containment fields into dust. It appears to be adapting to our defensive strategies faster than we can implement them." The human representative, Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth's fledgling stellar navy, sat quietly in her designated section. Her single ship and handful of crew seemed almost comically insignificant compared to the massive fleets and advanced technologies the other civilizations brought to bear. Most of the assembly barely acknowledged humanity's presence. They were newcomers to galactic politics, their technology centuries behind everyone else. But Admiral Chen had spent the last 6 hours studying the attack patterns and tactical reports. What she saw troubled her more than the creatures themselves. "If I may," she said, standing from her seat. Several representatives turned toward her with barely concealed amusement. The Zephyrian Admiral's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been annoyance. "Human Chen, we appreciate your perspective, but this is a discussion for civilizations with actual combat capabilities." Admiral Chen's expression remained perfectly calm. She had faced this condescension countless times since humanity's first contact with galactic civilization 5 years ago. "With respect, Admiral Thyrix, I've been analyzing the attack data. These creatures aren't just randomly powerful. They're specifically designed to counter your technologies." The chamber fell quiet. The human had their attention now, if only because she had made such an audacious claim. "Explain." commanded the Nexus ambassador. Admiral Chen activated her tablet, projecting holographic displays of the attack patterns for all to see. Look at the sequence of events. The creature on Eridus 7 appeared specifically where your crystal weaponry would be most effective. Open terrain, clear lines of fire. Yet it was completely immune. The entity on Aquatica Prime emerged in formation with your fleet deployment patterns, as if it knew exactly how you would respond. And the Elysium incident, she paused, looking directly at the ethereal representative. How often do your temporal controls fail? Ever? The shifting form of the ethereal solidified momentarily, betraying surprise. Never. Our mastery of time is absolute. Exactly. Which means these creatures weren't just randomly immune to your attacks. They were specifically engineered to counter them. High Admiral Therix's form flared brighter. Impossible. These are primordials. Ancient beings from before recorded history. They could not have knowledge of our modern capabilities. Unless, Admiral Chen continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was suggesting, someone with knowledge of those capabilities prepared them. The implications hit the assembly like a shockwave. The idea that these awakenings might not be natural, that someone or something was deliberately orchestrating them, transformed this from a natural disaster into an act of war. The Vorthon representative, a being of pure energy contained within a technological shell, spoke for the first time. You suggest conspiracy, treachery from within our own ranks. I suggest we're fighting the wrong battle, Admiral Chen replied. Every strategy meeting, every weapon deployment, every tactical decision we make here is being observed by representatives of 47 civilizations. If someone wanted to prepare countermeasures against all our capabilities, this would be the perfect place to gather that intelligence. A tense silence filled the chamber. Accusations of betrayal among the galactic powers could shatter the peace that had existed for over 1,000 years. Even if your paranoid suspicions were correct, Admiral Thyrix said, her harmonic voice carrying a sharp edge. What would you suggest? That we abandon cooperation? Fight these creatures separately? I suggest, Admiral Chen said quietly, that the solution might not come from any of our advanced civilizations at all. She manipulated her tablet, bringing up a new display. Instead of weapons specifications or battle formations, it showed something much simpler, historical records of human martial arts, philosophy texts, and meditation practices. Every culture that's contacted these primordials has tried to fight them with technology, with external power sources. But what if the answer is internal power? What if the solution requires something none of our civilizations have developed? The Nexus ambassador's optical sensors focused on the display with mechanical precision. You speak of primitive combat techniques, physical conditioning, mental discipline. How could such antiquated concepts possibly matter against creatures that can shrug off planet-killing weapons? Admiral? Chen closed her tablet and looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization's greatest powers. Because sometimes the most primitive approach is the most sophisticated one. My world has someone who might be able to help. Someone who understands forms of power that don't depend on technology or external energy sources. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs and derisive laughter. The idea that backward humanity might possess something the galaxy's greatest civilizations lacked seemed absurd. But High Admiral Thyrix was studying the human representative with new interest. The Zephyrian Collective had been fighting these creatures longer than anyone else. She had watched her most advanced weapons fail completely. Traditional solutions were clearly insufficient. What do you propose, Human Chen? Admiral Chen stood straighter, feeling the weight of her species' reputation resting on her shoulders. Give me a ship and let me return to Earth. We have someone there who needs to be brought to the front lines. He won't arrive with a fleet or superweapons. He'll come with nothing but what he can carry, and that might be exactly what we need. The ethereal representative's form flickered with temporal uncertainty. One individual against creatures that have defeated entire armadas. The probability of success approaches 0, Admiral Chen smiled, thinking of the report she'd received from the Tibetan plateau, of an old master who had somehow sensed the first awakening from halfway across the galaxy. Maybe, but right now, 0 probability is infinitely better than the negative probability we're achieving with conventional approaches. The vote to authorize humanity's unconventional mission passed by a single vote, with most representatives considering it a harmless gesture to placate the primitive newcomers. They had no idea they had just approved the galaxy's only real hope for survival. Master Chen Wei stood at the edge of the ancient crater that had once been New Shanghai, Earth's primary spaceport. The emergency evacuation had cleared the area of civilians, but the skeletal framework of launch gantries and processing facilities remained like the bones of some massive technological creature. Admiral Sarah Chen approached across the blast-scorched ground, her military escort maintaining a respectful distance. She had arrived on Earth just hours ago with authorization to transport any resource that might help against the primordial threat. What she found was not what she had expected. "Master Chen," she said, offering a formal bow, "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth's Stellar Navy. We are distantly related, I believe. My great-grandfather spoke of a Chen Wei who taught at the mountain monastery." The old master smiled, his weathered face creasing with genuine warmth. "Young Sarah, your great-grandfather was a good student, though he chose the path of worldly ambition over inner cultivation. I see he passed his determination to you, if not his patience." Admiral Chen felt a strange mixture of awe and skepticism as she studied this man who was supposed to be humanity's secret weapon. He carried only a simple cloth bag and a wooden walking staff. His robes were clean but worn, mended in several places. Nothing about him suggested the kind of power needed to face creatures that had shrugged off planetary bombardments. "Master, I must be frank. The situation is desperate. These primordials have destroyed 3 more worlds since I left the Galactic Assembly. The combined fleets of 12 civilizations cannot stop them. My government believes you might have unconventional insights that could help." Chen Wei nodded thoughtfully, his eyes scanning the horizon where emergency signals still flashed against the darkening sky. "Tell me about these creatures, child. Not their size or destructive capacity, but their nature. How do they move? How do they choose their targets?" Admiral Chen activated her tablet, showing reconnaissance footage from the attacks. As the images played, she noticed the master's expression growing more serious. "They demonstrate intelligence, but not in ways our strategists recognize. The creature on Eridas 7 could have destroyed the entire planet, but it specifically targeted communication networks first, then population centers. The one on Aquatica Prime moved through our fleet formations like it was following a predetermined pattern. And the temporal entity on Elysium, most disturbing of all. It seemed to exist in multiple time streams simultaneously. Our ethereal allies couldn't even perceive its true form clearly. It was as if..." She paused, struggling to find the right words. "As if it existed in perfect harmony with the flow of time itself." Chen Wei finished quietly. Admiral Chen stared at him. "Yes, exactly. How did you know?" The master closed his eyes and extended his senses, feeling the subtle vibrations that rippled through the cosmic web. Even from this distance, he could perceive the disturbances caused by the primordials as they moved across the galaxy. "Because they are not creatures of destruction, Admiral. They are creatures of balance. Imagine a river that has been dammed for thousands of years. When the dam finally breaks, the water does not flow gently back to its natural course. It floods everything in its path as it seeks to restore equilibrium." "I don't understand." Chen Wei began walking toward the waiting transport ship, his staff clicking rhythmically against the ground. "These civilizations you ally with, the Zephyrians with their crystal technology, the Nexus with their cybernetic augmentation, the Ethereals with their time manipulation, they have all achieved great power by imposing their will upon natural forces. They bend reality to serve their needs." Admiral Chen hurried to keep pace with the master's surprisingly quick steps. "Yes, that's how advanced technology works. We overcome natural limitations through engineering and science. And for thousands of years, this approach has been successful. But now the universe is correcting itself. The primordials are not attackers, they are antibodies, responding to what the cosmos perceives as an infection. They reached the transport ship, a sleek vessel that represented Earth's most advanced technology. Compared to the craft used by galactic civilizations, it was barely more sophisticated than the wooden boats that had once plied Earth's oceans. "If that's true," Admiral Chen said, "then fighting them with more advanced technology will only make things worse. Much worse. Each weapon fired, each reality manipulation attempted, each temporal field generated adds to the imbalance. The primordials grow stronger as their opponents become more aggressive." Admiral Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "Then how can they be stopped?" Chen Wei paused at the boarding ramp, looking back at the planet that had been his home for 70 years. Not stopped, calmed, returned to their natural state of harmony. But this requires approaching them not as enemies to be defeated, but as expressions of cosmic balance to be understood. As they boarded the ship, Admiral Chen tried to process what the master was telling her. You're saying we need to achieve some kind of peaceful resolution with creatures that have destroyed entire worlds? I am saying we need to understand why they were awakened and address the root cause rather than merely treating the symptoms. The ship's modest engines hummed to life as they prepared for departure. Through the viewports, Admiral Chen could see Earth falling away below them, a blue marble that looked almost primitive compared to the crystalline cities of Zephyr Prime or the mechanical perfection of the Nexus Core worlds. Master, I have to ask, what makes you believe you can succeed where entire fleets have failed? What do you possess that the galaxy's greatest civilizations lack? Shenwei settled into the passenger compartment's simple seating, closing his eyes and beginning to regulate his breathing. Already Admiral Chen could sense a change in the ship's atmosphere, a subtle calmness that seemed to emanate from the master's presence. They possess external power, Admiral. Ships that can move faster than light, weapons that can shatter moons, technologies that can manipulate the basic forces of reality. All of this is impressive, but it is still external. It can be taken away, blocked, or turned against them. And you? The master's breathing had synchronized perfectly with the ship's mechanical rhythms. His heartbeat seemed to pulse in harmony with the engines. Even the slight vibrations of space travel appeared to pass around him rather than through him. I possess only what cannot be taken away, the harmony between mind and body, the balance between action and inaction, the understanding that true strength comes not from imposing one's will upon the universe, but from moving in perfect accord with it. As their ship accelerated toward the edge of Earth's system, Admiral Chen found herself hoping that this impossible philosophy could somehow succeed where all the galaxy's science had failed. Because if it couldn't, she was leading humanity's last hope directly into the jaws of extinction. But watching Master Chen Wei meditate calmly as they flew toward their first encounter with cosmic horror, she began to understand that perhaps the most advanced approach was also the oldest one. The universe, it seemed, was about to teach the galaxy's great civilizations a lesson in humility. The Zephyrian battlecruiser Crystal Harmony hung in space like a massive geometric sculpture, its faceted hull reflecting the light of distant stars in patterns that seemed to shift with mathematical precision. Admiral Chen's small transport looked like a metal insect beside its crystalline bulk as they docked at the main bay. High Admiral Thyrix greeted them personally, her crystalline form resonating with barely contained energy. Around her, Zephyrian officers moved with efficient grace, their bodies catching and refracting light as they coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. Human Chen, Thyrix's harmonic voice carried undertones of stress that her translator couldn't quite capture. Your arrival is timely. The creature has begun moving toward the Centauri system. If it reaches the inhabited worlds there, 12 billion lives will be at risk. Master Chen Wei emerged from the transport, his simple robes and wooden staff seeming almost absurd in the high-tech environment of the battlecruiser. Several Zephyrian officers paused in their duties, clearly puzzled by this unexpected arrival. This is your expert? Thyrix asked, her form flickering with what might have been amusement. He appears unaugmented. No cybernetic interfaces, no energy manipulation capabilities, no protective equipment. Admiral Chen straightened. Master Chen Wei is humanity's foremost expert in internal energy cultivation and cosmic harmony. Cosmic harmony, Thyrix repeated, her tone suggesting she found the concept quaint. Admiral, we face a creature that has shrugged off concentrated plasma bombardment from 30 capital ships. It has demonstrated immunity to our most advanced crystal weaponry. What exactly do you expect this individual to accomplish? Master Chen Wei stepped forward, his movements so fluid they seemed to create ripples in the ship's artificial atmosphere. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly despite being barely above a whisper. Admiral Thyrix, may I observe this creature directly? The Zephyrian's form pulsed with surprise. Observe? It is currently 16 light hours away and moving at significant sublight velocity. Our long-range sensors can barely track it accurately. Not with instruments, the master said simply. May I use your meditation chamber? Thyrix exchanged what passed for glances with her officers. The request was so unusual that their translators seemed uncertain how to process it. We Do not have meditation chambers aboard military vessels. We have tactical planning rooms, strategic computing centers, weapons coordination hubs, and any quiet space will suffice. Still bemused, Thyrix led them to an auxiliary storage compartment that had been cleared for their use. The walls were lined with crystalline panels that hummed with barely audible energy, and the floor was a simple metal grid designed for cargo rather than comfort. Master Chen Wei sat cross-legged in the center of the room, placing his staff across his knees. He closed his eyes and began to regulate his breathing. Admiral Chen and High Admiral Thyrix watched from the doorway as the master's presence seemed to fill the small space. What happened next defied every principle of physics the Zephyrians understood. The crystal panels along the walls began to resonate in perfect harmony with the master's breathing. The ship's background energy patterns, normally chaotic and fluctuating, synchronized into smooth, regular pulses. Even the artificial gravity seemed to flow more smoothly around Chen Wei's motionless form. "Impossible," Thyrix whispered. "He's affecting our ship's core systems without any technological interface." Master Chen Wei's consciousness expanded beyond the confines of the battle cruiser, beyond the local star system, reaching out through the cosmic web of energy that connected all living things. Distance became irrelevant as he searched for the disturbance that was the primordial creature. When he found it, the contact nearly shattered his concentration. The entity was vast, not just physically but dimensionally. It existed across multiple layers of reality simultaneously, its consciousness touching past, present, and future in ways that made linear perception impossible. But beneath the overwhelming scale and alien nature, Chen Wei sensed something familiar. Pain, confusion, a desperate seeking for balance in a universe that had become unbearably discordant. The master opened his eyes, and both Admiral Chen and Thyrix saw that his expression had changed completely. Where before he had shown calm confidence, now there was deep compassion mixed with profound sadness. "It is not attacking," he said quietly. "It is suffering." "Suffering?" Thyrix's form flared brighter. "It has destroyed 3 worlds. It has tried to heal 3 wounds in the fabric of reality. Each world it visited was a site where advanced technology had created significant imbalance in the natural order. It attempted to restore harmony, but it lacks the knowledge to do so without causing destruction." Admiral Chen knelt beside the master. "Are you saying these creatures aren't malicious?" "They are cosmic immune responses, activated when the universe's natural balance has been too severely disturbed. But they are operating on instinct alone. Imagine a fever that burns so hot it kills the patient while trying to eliminate an infection." Thyrix's crystalline form sparked with indignation. "You suggest that our civilizations are infections? That our technological achievements are diseases to be cured?" Chen Wei stood slowly, his movement causing the resonating crystal panels to settle into new harmonic patterns. "I suggest that advancement without wisdom creates imbalance. That power without understanding generates consequences. Your technologies are magnificent, Admiral Thyrix, but they impose artificial order on natural systems. Over time, this creates stress patterns in the cosmic framework." He walked to one of the crystal panels, placing his hand against its surface. The entire wall began to glow with soft, steady light instead of its previous harsh flickering. However, it is possible to achieve the same results through cooperation with natural forces, rather than domination over them. Your crystals want to resonate harmoniously. When you force them to contain chaotic energy patterns, you create suffering on a molecular level. That suffering propagates outward, eventually reaching scales large enough to trigger primordial awakening. "This is absurd," Thyrix protested. "You speak of crystals having desires, of molecular suffering. These are poetic metaphors, not scientific principles, are they?" Chen Wei removed his hand from the panel, and its light immediately returned to harsh, irregular pulsing. "Your own instruments can measure the difference in energy efficiency. Which pattern requires more power to maintain?" Thyrix checked her readings and fell silent. The harmonious resonance had indeed been more efficient by several orders of magnitude. "Even if your theories were correct," she said finally, "the creature is still approaching populated worlds. Intention matters little if the result is mass extinction, which is why I must speak with it directly." Both admirals stared at him in shock. "Speak with it?" Admiral Chen found her voice first. "Master, this entity exists across multiple dimensions. It's larger than some moons. How could you possibly communicate with such a being?" Chen Wei picked up his staff and began walking toward the door. The same way I communicated with it from this storage room, by harmonizing with the cosmic frequencies it uses for perception. But such communication requires proximity. I will need to be very close to establish the connection properly. Close. Thyrix's form was now pulsing rapidly with alarm. The creature's energy field extends for thousands of kilometers. Nothing can approach it and survive. Master Chen Wei paused at the doorway, looking back at the two women who represented the best their civilizations had to offer in terms of military prowess and technological achievement. Admiral Thyrix, your ship survived by imposing their structural integrity against hostile forces. My approach is different. Instead of resisting the creature's energy field, I will harmonize with it, move with it rather than against it. As they walked back toward the bridge, Admiral Chen struggled with the implications of what the master was proposing. You're talking about approaching something that destroyed 3 worlds using nothing but meditation techniques. Even if your theories about cosmic harmony are correct, the risk is absolute, Chen Wei agreed. If I am wrong about the creature's nature, I will die instantly. But if I am right, and if I can establish communication, it might be possible to guide it away from populated areas and help it find the true source of the imbalance it seeks to correct. They reached the bridge just as new reports came in. The primordial had accelerated and would reach the Centauri system 18 hours ahead of schedule. Time was running out, and the galaxy's strangest hope was about to attempt the impossible. The escape pod was barely 3 meters long and equipped with minimal life support. Nothing more than a metal shell designed to keep a single person alive for a few hours in open space. Master Chen Wei sat in perfect meditation posture within its cramped confines, his wooden staff resting across his knees as the tiny craft approached the primordial entity. From the bridge of the Crystal Harmony, Admiral Chen and High Admiral Thyrix watched in horrified fascination as their sensor displays showed the impossible meeting about to take place. The creature filled their screens. Like a living galaxy, swirls of energy and matter that defied every law of physics they understood. Energy field contact. In 30 seconds, reported the Zephyrian tactical officer. The human's pod should be vaporized instantly upon entry. Admiral Chen gripped the railing with white knuckles. Master, if you can hear this transmission, you still have time to abort. We can retrieve you. Chen Wei's voice came back calm and steady through the communication link. Fear creates disharmony, young Sarah. Trust in the balance of all things. The pod touched the outer edge of the creature's energy field. Instead of being destroyed, it began to dance. The small craft spun and tumbled through the roiling energies, but its movement wasn't random. It flowed like a leaf on water, following currents that the Zephyrian sensors couldn't detect. The escape pod wove between tendrils of pure force that could have shattered battleships, riding waves of distorted space-time as if they were gentle breezes. Impossible, Thyrix breathed. The gravitational shears alone should have torn him apart. Inside the pod, Master Chen Wei had entered a state of consciousness that human language lacked words to describe. His awareness had expanded beyond the boundaries of his physical form, synchronizing with the vast intelligence that surrounded him. The primordial's thoughts moved like tidal forces across dimensional barriers, but Chen Wei met them with the flexible strength of water, finding its course through stone. Who disturbs the healing? The creature's communication wasn't sound or telepathy, but pure concept transmitted through quantum fluctuations. The force of it would have driven most minds to instant madness. Chen Wei received it like a master calligrapher accepting ink into his brush. One who seeks understanding, he replied through the same medium. One who feels the pain you carry. Pain? The concept carried overtones of confusion. I am healing, restoring. The wounds cry out for balance. Chen Wei's consciousness touched the edges of the creature's perception, and he gasped at what he found there. The primordial existed on scales that encompassed entire galactic regions. From its perspective, the advanced civilizations were like aggressive cancer cells, spreading artificial order that created ripples of discord throughout the cosmic framework. The wounds are real, Chen Wei acknowledged, but healing requires precision. Your touch, though well-intentioned, causes more harm than cure. The creature's attention focused on the tiny pod that danced unharmed within its energy field. For the first time in eons, it encountered something that didn't resist its touch or attempt to impose foreign patterns upon it. You move in harmony. How is this possible from such small life? Size matters not, Chen Wei replied, drawing on wisdom his masters had taught him decades ago. A single drop of water in perfect accord with a stream can influence the course of a great river. He extended his consciousness further, showing the creature images from Earth, masters practicing Tai Chi in perfect synchronization with natural forces. Meditation gardens where every element existed in delicate balance. Ancient temples that had stood for millennia, not by imposing their will upon the earth, but by finding harmony with it. These patterns, they do not wound the deeper structures, no, but they require patience, understanding. The healing you seek cannot be accomplished through force, even benevolent force. The primordial's vast intelligence contemplated this concept while its physical form continued toward the Centauri system. On Proxima Centauri b, 12 billion beings prepared for evacuation that could not possibly be completed in time. Show me, the creature demanded. Demonstrate this gentle healing. Chen Wei felt his consciousness drawn deeper into the entity's multidimensional awareness. What he experienced there nearly broke his sanity. Layer upon layer of cosmic damage where advanced technologies had forced reality into unnatural configurations. The pain was overwhelming, like being inside a vast organism riddled with infection, but instead of recoiling, the master began to work. With infinite patience, he showed the creature how to apply pressure without force, how to guide energy flows rather than redirect them, how to heal wounds by supporting the natural regenerative processes rather than imposing artificial repairs. It was like teaching a giant to perform surgery with needles instead of hammers. On the bridge of the crystal harmony, the sensor readings began showing something unprecedented. The creature's chaotic energy patterns were gradually organizing themselves into more stable configurations. The gravitational distortions that had been tearing at local space-time were smoothing out. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, voice filled with disbelief. The entity is changing course. It's moving away from the inhabited worlds. Admiral Chen felt a surge of hope, but it was tempered by the readings from Master Chen Wei's pod. His life signs were becoming increasingly erratic, as the strain of mental contact with the primordial took its toll. Inside the creature's awareness, Chen Wei was teaching by example, showing how to perceive the cosmic web not as a structure to be repaired, but as a living system to be supported and nurtured. Each lesson drained more of his strength, but the entity was learning with the hunger of intelligence that had been isolated for millennia. I understand, the primordial finally communicated. The small healings accumulate into great restoration, but the sources of imbalance remain active. More wounds are created even as others heal. Yes, Chen Wei agreed, feeling his consciousness beginning to fray at the edges. That is why the galaxy's civilizations must learn new ways. Technology guided by wisdom rather than ambition. Progress that enhances natural harmony rather than replacing it. Will they learn? Chen Wei thought of the Galactic Assembly, of the proud civilizations so certain of their superiority, of the vast fleets even now preparing to attack other awakening primordials with increasingly powerful weapons. Some will, he said honestly. Others will require encouragement. The creature's vast amusement rippled through dimensional barriers like cosmic laughter. Encouragement. Yes. Perhaps they will learn better. When the choice is harmony or extinction. The primordial began to change course more dramatically, heading away from all inhabited systems. But Chen Wei could sense its intention. It was moving toward the sites of the greatest imbalances, the core worlds where each civilization had built their most advanced and destructive technologies. Wait, he called out, but his strength was nearly spent. The mental contact was burning out his neural pathways faster than his body could compensate. Sleep, little teacher. The creature's thoughts wrapped around his consciousness like a gentle tide. You have given a great gift. I will not forget the lesson of gentle healing. Master Chen Wei's pod was suddenly surrounded by a bubble of calm space, protected from the creature's energy field as it was gently ejected back toward the waiting battlecruiser. His last conscious thought was a prayer that the galaxy's civilizations would prove wise enough to learn from what was about to happen. The primordial continued on its new course, carrying within its vast intelligence a revolutionary understanding of how to heal without destroying. The question now was whether the galaxy's greatest powers would accept the medicine they were about to receive. Master Chen Wei awakened in the medical bay of the Crystal Harmony to find his body barely functional and his mind expanded beyond its previous boundaries. The contact with the primordial had left permanent changes in his consciousness. He could now perceive energy flows that had previously been invisible, sense the cosmic web's subtle vibrations across vast distances. Admiral Chen sat beside his recovery bed, her face etched with worry and exhaustion. Around them, the ship's medical equipment hummed with barely controlled chaos as Zephyrian healers struggled to understand what had happened to the human's neural patterns. "How long was I unconscious?" Chen Wei asked, his voice hoarse. 36 hours, and in that time, everything has changed. Admiral Chen activated a holographic display showing galactic communication channels. "The primordial you contacted has reached 3 different core worlds, but instead of destroying them, the display showed unprecedented scenes. On Zephyr Prime, the crystalline capital world of the Zephyrian Collective, the massive creature had settled into orbit and begun healing. The planet's crystal formations, stressed and cracked from millennia of intensive energy extraction, were being carefully restored to their natural harmonic frequencies. The entity is demonstrating the techniques you taught it," Admiral Chen continued. "But the civilizations don't understand what's happening. They're interpreting it as a new form of attack." Chen Wei struggled to sit up, his enhanced perception immediately picking up the discord rippling through galactic space. "Show me the other incidents." The hologram shifted to show the Nexus Core world, a planet that had been completely mechanized centuries ago. The primordial there had begun systematically, demechanizing it, but not through destruction. Instead, it was showing the cybernetic inhabitants how their technology could be integrated with organic systems rather than replacing them entirely. "The Nexus leadership is in complete panic," Admiral Chen reported. "They see it as an attempt to force biological contamination into their perfect machine civilization." The third scene was perhaps the most dramatic. On Ethereal Prime, where the masters of time manipulation maintain their temporal research facilities, the visiting primordial had begun stabilizing the chaotic time streams that centuries of temporal experimentation had created. "The ethereals are experiencing something they've never encountered before," Admiral Chen said grimly. "Linear time. They can no longer jump between past and future at will. They're trapped in the present moment and it's driving them to desperation." Chen Wei closed his eyes, extending his enhanced senses across the galactic communication networks. What he found there made his heart sink. Fear, rage, and desperate planning for increasingly destructive countermeasures. The galaxy's great civilizations were preparing for war against enemies they couldn't understand. "They're not learning," he said quietly. "They're escalating. It gets worse. The other primordials, the ones you haven't contacted, are beginning to respond to the activities of the first 4. 9 more have awakened in the past day alone, and these ones aren't showing the restraint of the entity you spoke with." The holographic display shifted to show reports from across the galaxy. Entire star systems were being restructured, as primordials attempted their own versions of cosmic healing. Without the gentle guidance Chen Wei had provided, their methods were crude, devastating, and utterly effective. The Andorian Trade Federation had simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but transformed into something that bore no resemblance to its previous form. The warlike Kraken Empire found their military installations converted into elaborate gardens that pulsed with energy patterns no Kraken mind could comprehend. "How many casualties?" Chen Wei asked. "That's the strangest part, almost none. The primordials seem to be very careful about preserving individual lives, while completely dismantling entire civilizations. But the psychological trauma of having everything you understand about reality suddenly changed." Admiral Chen shook her head. "Billions of beings are experiencing complete mental breakdown." Chen Wei forced himself to stand, ignoring the protest from his damaged nervous system. "Where is the Galactic Assembly now?" "Relocated to a secure facility in the void between, a space station built in the empty region between galactic arms. They're calling it humanity's fault for introducing dangerous concepts to the entities. Some are demanding that Earth be handed over to them as compensation." "And what is Earth's response?" Admiral Chen's expression darkened. "Earth's government is divided. Half want to surrender you to the galactic authorities. The other half want to declare you humanity's greatest hero and demand recognition as the galaxy's leading power. The Master walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars that now appeared different to his enhanced perception. He could see the energy flows between systems, the stress patterns where advanced civilizations had bent reality to their will, the gentle corrections being applied by awakening primordials across the galaxy. Both responses missed the point entirely, he said. This isn't about blame or glory. It's about survival and evolution. He turned back to Admiral Chen, his weathered face set with new determination. Sarah, I need you to arrange something that will probably be considered either brilliant or completely insane. I want to address the Galactic Assembly directly. Master, they're calling for your arrest. Half the species in the galaxy consider you a terrorist who taught cosmic weapons how to be more efficient. Then it's time for them to learn what I actually taught. Chen, we began gathering his simple possessions, the cloth bag, the wooden staff, the worn robes that had survived contact with forces beyond imagination. But this time, I won't be teaching the primordials. I'll be teaching the civilizations themselves. Admiral Chen stared at him in disbelief. You want to teach kung fu to crystalline beings who exist as pure energy? To cybernetic entities that have replaced their organic components? To time manipulators who experience existence in 4 dimensions? Master Chenwei smiled, the expression carrying all the serene confidence that had sustained him through 7 decades of dedicated practice. I want to teach them how to live in harmony with the universe, instead of in opposition to it. How to achieve their goals through cooperation with natural forces, rather than domination over them. How to grow in power without creating the imbalances that trigger cosmic immune responses. He paused at the medical bay's exit, looking back at the woman who had become humanity's link to the wider galaxy. But first, I need to convince them that learning such lessons is preferable to extinction. And for that, I'll need to demonstrate something that none of their advanced technologies have been able to accomplish. Which is, I'm going to show them how to communicate with 13 awakened primordials simultaneously, and convince them to stop their healing efforts voluntarily. As they left the medical bay, Admiral Chen realized she was about to witness either the greatest diplomatic achievement in galactic history, or the most spectacular failure ever recorded. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly convened in a chamber that hummed with barely contained panic. Representatives from 47 civilizations filled the Great Hall, but now their magnificent diversity seemed fragile rather than impressive. The Zephyrian delegation flickered with unstable energy patterns, their crystal forms showing stress fractures from the healing their homeworld had endured. The Nexus representatives moved with jerky, uncertain motions as their cybernetic components struggled to adapt to the organic integrations forced upon their core world. Most disturbing of all, the ethereal delegation consisted of only 3 individuals instead of their usual dozen. The rest were trapped in temporal loops, experiencing the same moment over and over as their consciousness tried to process linear time. Master Chen Wei entered the chamber with Admiral Sarah Chen at his side, his simple robes and wooden staff drawing hostile stares from beings whose civilizations had been fundamentally altered by entities he had taught. Security escorts maintained careful distance, not from fear of the old human, but from the strange energy patterns that now surrounded him like a gentle aurora. High Admiral Thyrix stood to address the assembly, her crystalline form casting harsh light that reflected her inner turmoil. Honored delegates, we face the gravest crisis in galactic history. 13. Primordial entities have awakened across our territories. Our greatest worlds have been changed beyond recognition. Billions of our citizens struggle to comprehend realities that no longer follow the natural laws we have mastered. A harsh harmonic from the Nexus delegation interrupted her. The human Chen Wei taught these creatures techniques that have corrupted our perfect machine civilization. Organic elements now grow throughout our cities like tumors. Our pure digital consciousness is being forced into biological patterns that create emotions. The word carried overtones of revulsion and terror. The temporal stabilization of ethereal prime has trapped our people in linear existence, added one of the 3 remaining ethereal representatives, her form flickering uncertainly between past and future states. Millions of years of temporal research have been rendered impossible. We can no longer perceive the universe as it truly is, a fluid convergence of all possible timelines. Master Chen Wei stepped forward, and the chamber's energy patterns immediately began to shift. The harsh lighting softened, the chaotic resonances smoothed into more harmonious frequencies, and even the artificial gravity seemed to flow more naturally around his presence. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying clearly despite its gentle tone. "I understand your fear and confusion, but what you describe as corruption and entrapment, the universe itself sees as healing and restoration." Healing? The Vorthan representative, a being of pure energy contained within technological barriers, flared with indignation. "Our energy matrices are being forced into biological patterns. We are beings of pure thought being dragged down into crude matter." Chen Wei nodded thoughtfully. "And yet, your current form requires constant technological maintenance to preserve your coherence. You exist in opposition to natural entropy, rather than in harmony with it. The energy you expend fighting your own fundamental nature could be redirected toward growth and evolution." He gestured toward the Zephyrian delegation. "Admiral Thyrix, your people have achieved remarkable mastery over crystalline structures. But this mastery comes through force. You bend crystals to your will rather than working with their natural resonances. The stress this creates accumulates over time, eventually requiring the kind of correction you've experienced." Thyrix's form pulsed with anger. "Our crystal technology has created a civilization of unprecedented beauty and efficiency." "Indeed it has. But at what cost? Your homeworld's natural crystal formations were dying from overuse. The primordial didn't destroy them, it healed them. Now they can continue to serve your needs for millions of years instead of mere centuries." Chen Wei turned to address the Nexus delegation. "Your cybernetic enhancements have freed you from biological limitations, but they have also cut you off from the cosmic web of life energy that connects all existence. The organic integrations you're experiencing aren't contamination. They're reconnection to the universe's fundamental vitality. We chose to transcend biological weakness," protested the Nexus representative. "We achieved perfection through technology. You achieved isolation," Chen Wei replied gently. "Perfection that can only be maintained through constant artificial intervention is not true perfection. It's elegant imprisonment." The chamber erupted in angry responses from dozens of species, each protesting that their way of existence was being unjustly threatened. Master Chen Wei waited patiently for the chaos to subside, then raised his staff slightly. The simple wooden implement seemed to draw all attention toward itself, creating an island of calm in the storm of outrage. "You came here seeking a weapon that could destroy the primordials," he said when quiet returned. "But weapons cannot solve this crisis because the primordials are not your enemies. They are cosmic antibodies responding to infections in reality itself. Infections caused by civilizations that have grown powerful by working against natural harmony instead of with it." "What do you propose?" asked the senior ethereal delegate. "That we abandon millions of years of advancement? Return to primitive conditions? I propose that you learn to achieve the same goals through cooperation with universal forces rather than domination over them." Chen Wei began walking slowly around the chamber's central platform, his enhanced perception reading the energy patterns of each delegation. "Your technologies are impressive, but they are crude compared to what becomes possible when you work in harmony with natural law instead of against it." He paused before a delegation of silicon-based beings from the Mineral Collective. "Your people extract energy by breaking molecular bonds through brute force. But if you learn to persuade atoms to release energy voluntarily through resonance techniques, you could achieve greater output with no environmental damage." Moving to the aquatic delegation from the ocean worlds, he continued, "Your cities fight against water pressure instead of using it. Learning to channel pressure differentials could provide unlimited power while actually improving ocean health." "These are theoretical concepts," protested High Admiral Thyrix. "You speak of possibilities, not proven methods." Master Chen Wei smiled and extended his hands, palms upward. Above each palm, a small sphere of light began to form, not through technology, but through perfect manipulation of the cosmic energy flows that surrounded all existence. I learned these techniques from ancient human masters who understood that the universe desires cooperation, not conquest. Every force you fight against can become a force you channel for greater effect. The spheres of light began to pulse in rhythm with the heartbeats of every biological being in the chamber, creating a harmony that even the mechanical and energy-based life forms found strangely soothing. But such learning requires humility, Chen Wei continued. It requires acknowledging that your current methods, while successful, are not the only paths to advancement. It requires accepting that true mastery comes not from imposing your will upon reality, but from finding your perfect place within it. He brought his hands together, and the spheres merged into a single point of brilliant light that somehow didn't hurt to look at directly. I can teach you these methods. All of you. Your crystalline structures could achieve far greater efficiency through harmonic resonance. Your cybernetic systems could be enhanced rather than replaced by organic integration. Your temporal manipulations could work with time's natural flow instead of against it. And if we refuse, asked the Vorthan representative, if we choose to fight these entities with all our power? Chen Wei's expression grew sad as he released the sphere of light, watching it dissipate gently into the chamber's atmosphere. Then more primordials will awaken, using increasingly dramatic methods to restore balance. The universe is patient, but it will not allow reality itself to be damaged indefinitely. How many more? Admiral Sarah Chen asked quietly. The cosmic web contains thousands of sleeping primordials, Chen Wei replied. If the current imbalances continue to grow, if civilizations respond to healing with greater force, eventually they will all awaken. The implications hung in the chamber's air like a death sentence. 13 entities had fundamentally altered some of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Thousands would mean the end of technological civilization as they knew it. But there is another way, the master continued, his voice carrying new hope. Learn to live in harmony with natural law. Teach your people to see cooperation with universal forces as the highest form of advancement. Accept the changes the primordials have already made as opportunities for growth, rather than threats to resist. High Admiral Thyrix's crystalline form flickered as she processed this proposition. Around the chamber, representatives of the galaxy's greatest powers struggled with the choice between pride and survival. You ask us to abandon everything. That makes us who we are, she said finally. I ask you to become more than you currently are, Chen Wei replied. To grow beyond the limitations that have confined you to working against the universe instead of with it. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. 24 civilizations chose to accept Chen Wei's teachings and begin the difficult process of learning harmonic technology. 23 refused, clinging to their traditional methods and preparing for war against the primordials. As the assembly dispersed, Master Chen Wei knew that his real work was just beginning. He would need to teach an entire galaxy new ways of thinking, new approaches to technology, new relationships with the fundamental forces of existence. But for the first time since the crisis began, the cosmic web around him hummed with the possibility of true harmony between intelligence and nature. The age of humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy had begun.